I woke up in excruciating pain, debilitating pain, and I tried low seasonique for about 4 months and then went to the regular seasonique and remained on the regular seasonique for about 6.5 years, right? I guess it can't get worse, right? I just didn't feel good. My biggest issue that came down to the ultimate decision of having a hysterectomy and bilateral salpingectomy was due. Hello, my name is Erin, my pronouns are she, they, and this is what I like to call what the hell happened with my reproductive system. I'm 27 years old and at the current moment I'm 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks, post hysterectomy, which is the removal of my uterus, and bilateral salpingectomy, which is the removal of my fallopian tubes. I'll try and keep this as condensed as possible. However, we'll see where it goes. My biggest issue that came down to the ultimate decision of having a hysterectomy and bilateral salpingectomy was due to dysmenorrhea, which is just painful menstrual cycles. And sometimes it feels really hard to just say that's all it was. But that's what my current diagnosis is, or was. I don't have any other underlying conditions or things that were found both pre-surgery and post-surgery, which I'll get into a little bit more. But like I said, I'm 27. I started menstruating when I was in my teens, relatively unproblematic for the first few years, and then when I turned about 15, I woke up in excruciating pain, debilitating pain in the summertime due to my menstrual cycle. And I called out of work, managed to not die through that first cycle. It happened again the next month, and then the next month was September. So at this point, it was then getting into being an issue that had happened over the course of a few weeks or a few months and was getting in the way of schooling. So I went to my first visit with a gynecologist who at the time said, well, we can try birth control, we can try painkillers, or we can try both. Maybe some type of muscle relaxer at some point. And I didn't need birth control for contraceptive purposes, but being a young person, I wanted the option, so I said, let's try that. I tried about 5 different ones before I actually settled on one over the course of about a year. I started with low estrogen 24, then ortho tricycline low, and both of those had an issue with my body falling into the cycle and like listening to the pills. Then I had ortho tricycline, which was able to regulate my cycles. They weren't irregular, my body just wasn't listening to them. And I was then still having a lot of pain during my cycles from the pill. So I brought up to my doctor trying seasonique, and I tried low seasonique for about 4 months and then went to the regular seasonique and remained on the regular seasonique for about 6.5 years. And my mentality behind that was really just, well, it doesn't seem like there's anything else they can do for me, and at least I'll only have 4 menstrual cycles a year, 4 periods a year, and that's where all my pain was. So in that 6 years, I continued going back to a nurse practitioner within the gynecological practice that I went to. My entire family went there. It was really busy, so nurse practitioner was the easiest. And during that time, I had asked about pain management, and their suggestion was to just take prescription strength of over the counter. They said, well, the only thing we're going to prescribe you is something like prescription strength Advil or Aleve anyway, so you can take more than the over-the-counter dose would be. So instead of taking 2 pills, take 4 pills, take it every 4 hours instead of every 6 hours, and that's what I did for about 6.5 years. Fast forward, at the end of 2000, or the mid of 2016, I'm finishing up college, graduating, moving, starting a new job, and I decided that, like, of all this movement, I wasn't paying attention as much to the pill. I was still having issues, so, those of you who have ever taken oral contraceptives know that if you are you miss a day, you miss 2 days, you take it at the wrong time, it can really mess with your system. So I decided I wanted something that was a little bit more long-term and less maintenance. So I inquired about getting an IUD, an intrauterine device. At this point, I was wanting it for contraceptive purposes, as well as menstrual cycle pain management. So I started on the Skyla IUD in March 2017. I had it for about a year. It was glorious. I had no menstrual cycle for 6 months, then I had no menstrual cycle for 4 months, and then at that 10-month mark, it seemed like they came back with a vengeance. They then became irregular and they became painful to the point where I felt like a teenager carrying around extra clothes and underwear and menstrual products, and would get caught off guard. And I distinctly remember like teaching my students and sliding down the wall because I got hit with a wave of pain, and then teaching from the floor from the rest of the day. At this point, I had moved, so I was now living in Baltimore, Maryland, so I went to a new doctor practice for my annual, and I brought it up to the nurse practitioner there that didn't really seem like Skyla was helping. So the nurse practitioner recommended let's go on Mirena, and with a higher dose of hormone, hopefully would stop cycles. And I was like, yes, that's what I want. I was never particularly worried about preserving fertility and making sure that the parts still worked. There was a point in my life where I wanted to birth children, but that has passed. Don't even know if I want to have any at all, never mind birth them myself. So I was at this point like, all right, let's try. I was on Mirena for about 9 months with really no help. Some kind of like the pain got better, but then the irregularity got worse. So I went back to the practice and started establishing one specific doctor in that practice. So he had suggested, let's try some imaging, let's try some testing and see what's going on. I had a transvaginal and pelvic ultrasound that came up with nothing. Nothing out of the ordinary. My hormone levels were all ordinary. So at that point, he recommended something called tranexamic acid, which in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like a blood clotter. It's supposed to help with heavy bleeding. So it kind of is supposed to help with the intense menstrual cycles. So I was on that, and what happened is my mostly regular, very painful, had become like really long bleeding cycles, 10, 12 days. It felt like I would just stop and start back up again. So then I went to go back, I should say, and then COVID hit. So I'm at like the 10-year mark at this point. I then in July 2020 said to my doctor, all right, like the TXA is causing a lot of other issues. So he said, let's try something else to try and maybe regulate your cycles now. If the TXA is helping with the pain, let's try something to regulate those cycles so at least you can better prepare for them, which it starts throwing back almost to what I was doing on birth control pills, but less hormones at least. So I did that for about 3 months. Then when I finally was like, this is not working, I met with a colleague that worked very closely with my doctor in the practice, and I said, it's the TXA, the extra pill, it's not helping. And she recommended, let's try getting you on a regular birth control pill instead of just the progestin only, just at certain points in my cycle, the TXA for certain points in my cycle. I said, all right, I guess it can't get worse, right? So I went back on low Seasonique, or the generic version of low Seasonique, which is what I had been on literally 10 years previous. At this point, the combination of Mirena and Seasonique worked in stopping my cycles, but I just didn't feel good. One of the reasons I got off Seasonique 6 years beforehand was about 5 years beforehand, was because I just didn't feel right in my body. I didn't feel right in my head. There's a lot of linkage between the adverse side effects of oral contraceptives and your body. I was like, all right, let's see, I'll give it a shot. And within about 4 months, I was like, I'm not comfortable. So in February 2021, I went back to my doctor And I said, I don't like this. This is not working. What do we do next? To my doctor. And at this point, the beginning of the conversation started with my doctor saying, well, you've tried a lot of things and you've tried almost everything. Like the Mirena IUD is supposed to be the gold standard with helping most issues, and it's not working for you. So we can talk about some other things. We could talk about surgery, but surgery would be a whole other conversation. And I paused him right there and I said, let's talk about surgery. It was mentioned 2 years prior when we kind of first started working together on this, and the potential of endometriosis got brought up. It's not something that can be brought on imagery or seen on imagery, and it can't be really found until they go in and look for it. Endometriosis is growing of the uterine lining outside of the uterus, so it's like on all your other pelvic and abdominal organs sometimes, or within like the muscle or fascia folds. So I said, let's do it. Like, at this point, I don't know what else to do. I said to my doctor, ideally, I want a hysterectomy. I don't want to have the parts that are causing me all these issues, but I know as a 27-year-old, that's not something that's very common. It's not something I figure most doctors are going to do. So if we're gonna go in and do an endometrius investigation and possible excision, can you at least agree to tie my tubes or remove my tubes so I can maybe get off all of these hormones and once and for all, really figure out like where my body is at. My doctor actually was like, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize that surgery was something that you were interested in. I can do that, or I can do you one better. I actually can do the hysterectomy. You've indicated you don't care to have children. We've been doing this for 2 years and you have an established history of even longer of painful cycles. You have cervical and fallopian tube cancer, family in your history. Like, I can do this. And I kind of was taken aback and surprised and said, okay, well, like, how many things do we have to do before insurance will cover it? And he said to me, you failed medical management, hormonal, non-hormonal options. You've tried them, most of them, and they're not working for you. So you failed medical management, and then this is surgical management, and this is the surgical management that I'm recommending. I can absolutely get it approved and pushed, through your insurance and everything like that. And I was floored. I walked out of the office like sobbing because I never thought this would happen. Like happy tears, relief tears. So then in February, I kind of went through of, well, when do I get the surgery done? There's a 4 to 6 week kind of recovery time in order to do a hysterectomy. Like if something else happens, it kind of could be more time. And I said, I can't wait any longer. Teachers were martyrs. A lot of the times we like to, I'll wait till summer. And I'm like, no, I can't wait till summer. So I decided to do it right at the change of 4th marking period. It worked out really well, just like what my doctor had available in his schedule at the time. And then it will allow me to get back in the classroom before the school year ends. So on April 15th, I went into Johns Hopkins Outpatient Center and had a hysterectomy. Went in about 8 a.m. My surgery was scheduled about 10:30. I was out by about 3, it's a little foggy, 3, 4. I was definitely out by like 4, and then I went home at about 6. So things went really smoothly, according to my doctors. I actually had a post-op appointment with my doctor that, since I had asked previous to surgery, thinking they were going to find all this endometriosis to take pictures and videos, and he showed me them in my 2-week post-op, but they actually found nothing. Not a drop or speck of endometriosis, which is both a relief and both a frustration, because I kind of thought that had to have been the answer for why I was having all this pain and discomfort, and it wasn't. I really have no answers. Since my surgery, I found out a lot more about a little bit more family history and even other people that are not related to me, just like all the things they've gone through that nobody talks about, which is why I wanted to share this. would my doctor have done a hysterectomy for purely I don't want to be pregnant purposes? I don't know, but coupled with my history and my pain and the fact that I don't want to be pregnant was how it was supposed to happen. But I have 2 scars right above my hips and a scar within my belly button that's pretty much hidden. I'm still healing from the internal scars and stitches and have about 3 more weeks, maybe 4, until that's like fully healed. But overall, successful. And if you stuck around this long, advocate for yourself. I know it's hard. Access sucks. I'm very fortunate to have really good insurance, but these are things that people need to talk about, and we need to make it better for the next generation.